I'm Courtney Duglow and I'm Director of Partnership for Shine a Light. Shine a Light offers 2 annual fundraising for nonprofits who are working really hard to put an end to sexual assault, sexual exploitation, and sex trafficking. So I have the great honor today to be interviewing Mary Farrell with the Maslow Project, and we'd love for you to just share a little bit about your work.
Oh, well, thanks for having me today. We've been really fortunate to benefit from the Shine a Light support over the years.
Great.
Yeah. Maslow Project is sort of aligned with the concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so we obviously strive to get kids who are experiencing homelessness to be safe and to be stable so that they can engage in school and complete their high school education and ultimately identify goals for their future, whether it's education, whether it's trade, whether it's employment, or breaking that cycle of poverty for their own family down the line. And so learning the skills that they need to be successful later in life. So one of our core programs, our stabilizing program, is really our street outreach program. And that's really where we're federally mandated to identify kids who are at risk for sexual exploitation and trafficking. Our primary goal is to identify youth who are living unsheltered on the streets in Jackson and Josephine County. So we're in all the nooks and crannies between Ashland and the Applegate, Butte Falls and the Upper Rogue, and then into Josephine County around Wolf Creek, all the way out to Cave Junction.
Wow.
So we cover a lot of ground, and we are finding a lot of kids unsheltered these days. It's kind of surprising. Typically we don't see kids under the age of 14, but we do sometimes see them that young. And then we really work with kids through age 21, so 0 to 21. But if they're already in our services, we continue to support them through age 24, so that young adult category as well.
Great.
Yeah, so our street outreach program is really designed to not only find those kids, but then to intervene. So if they are in unsafe or unhealthy situations, whether it might be self-harm behaviors, if they're self-medicating to deal with the trauma of being homeless, like sleeping outside, kids will often turn to substance use as a way of coping with the harsh realities of what it takes to survive on the streets.
Absolutely.
And we have had clients over the years that really have shared their stories with us, and it just punctuates the need for our staff to be out where they're at, finding them and connecting them with safety and with resources. So one of the concepts that historically has been referred to as survival sex has now been reclassified as a form of trafficking. And the best way to tell you what that is when both boys and girls will find somebody on the streets who will protect them. And so they end up sharing sexual favors or sharing their body in ways that they would not normally choose to, because that is a safer solution than what might happen if they were not protected and just vulnerable to predators on the street at night. There's no such thing as youth prostitution. Children and young adults don't elect into that activity. It is 100% them being exploited or trafficked in some way. We have some predatory individuals who specifically seek out young, vulnerable kids who are on the streets and offer this protection in exchange for sex. And the mental impact as well as the physical impact of those activities causes damage that takes years and years and years for kids to recover from.
Yeah.
They often feel a deep sense of shame because they don't want to be sharing their bodies in that way, but they're so fearful of the alternative that they go down that road. And even after we've removed them from being on the streets and provided some stability, it's almost like they have post-traumatic flashbacks to those, creating trust with relationships in the future, creating trust with adults that they had previously looked to as a safe, you're older and you're supposed to take care of me. So really working on creating safety plans for those kids, like how to get connected to help, whether it's SART or whether it's, programs that really address sexual assault, sexual violence, sex trafficking, talking with them about their options. In fact, we came across a youth who was sleeping in a storm gutter last spring, going to school during the day, but sleeping in a storm gutter to try to not be visible to other homeless people at night.
Wow.
But when we found this particular youth, actually it was a police officer, found the youth and brought them to our attention. They had been raped the night before, and the trauma of it had created this blackout situation that they didn't fully remember, but they could physically tell that something had happened to them. So our outreach workers get them to the hospital, and then we contact SART, and they'll often meet with them to talk about their options if they want to file a police report, if they want to do the rape test kit, what kinds of counseling is available. And we work with them all the way through those warm handoffs with other organizations. So it's not like we just say, here, now they're yours, good luck. Exactly. We stay with them and we kind of walk every step of the way until they feel, that they can stabilize.
Yeah.
So that's our street outreach program.
Wow.
And then Maslow Project also has a bunch of other services to support homeless children and youth and families so that they can, address their basic needs, stay in school, get permanent housing, develop the life skills, develop the education and the income, whether it's revenue or from a job, or whether it's getting connected to DHS support or Social Security, disability, kind of help navigate those different pathways with them, ultimately so that they can stabilize and, offer their children a better life going forward.
Exactly. It's like you're creating a field of connection, because I know trauma can be so isolating, and living on the streets can be profoundly isolating, not even just set aside if they weren't even being raped and had to watch themselves at night, just the effects of not being able to sleep at night, what that does to the psyche, but having to not be able to sleep at night and to be on guard and to possibly get raped, that's a huge amount of trauma.
Yes, and we track the physical impacts of those traumas. So kids who are unsheltered are 75% more likely to be raped or a victim of a sexual assault.
Yeah.
And that's a very high statistic. Most of these kids are experiencing any number of traumas that led to them being on the streets, and if they turn to the streets because that was a safer alternative than where they came from, to then just be reassaulted on the streets it causes just compounding damage, and these kids are sick at twice the rates of housed kids. They have 4 times the rate of emotional and mental health disorders. They are 7 times more likely to attempt suicide. And so those are factors that we keep in mind and really try to reduce the traumas of childhood homelessness and give them an opportunity to just be kids. And when they come into our programs, we try to provide not just the basic needs, but like opportunities for play and for connecting with peers and for personal development. So connecting them with art therapy or connecting them with, music classes, or we do field trips where they can volunteer at Sanctuary One and know how it feels to kind of give it back, or to be a part of, animal care, and that's a therapy as well.
Beautiful.
And taking them to field trips, so that I think we went to the massage school and they got to see that as a career option. The beauty school, the culinary school. So exploring trades, who are these kids going to be when they're 30 and parents of their own, and trying to help them see that they are more than who they are today.
That's beautiful. So really creating a long-term vision for them.
Yes. Exactly.
Wonderful. Yeah. And it seems like there's probably a lot of ways that people can support and help and just be a part of such an important mission. Would you share some of those ways that people can help?
The most obvious way that a lot of people don't really think about is just, if they learn something about homeless youth, to share it with someone else. One of the biggest challenges we face in this community is the stigma around being homeless.
Very good.
Our children have shared with us that they feel their community fears them or doesn't like homeless kids, or they think they're all just bad kids who chose to run away from an otherwise good home. They must all be on drugs. And that's rarely ever the case. So really just in creating some education and awareness and compassion in this community that these are really children. And at one point, all homeless people were children, and the best way to prevent homeless children from becoming homeless adults for life is to provide services and try to stabilize them while they're young. So developing some compassion there goes a long way.
Definitely.
But then, of course, like, we obviously have all kinds of ways that people support us, from financial contributions, which help pay for our staff who really do that relationship building with kids and that care coordination and making sure that they're getting from point A to point B and walking them through the process, not just giving them a phone number and saying you can call this place, but we take them there and we facilitate the care that they need.
And you're developing these relationships, so just the trauma, it just seems like the trauma and the chaotic lifestyles of living on the streets because of that trauma sometimes can make it really hard to be able to focus on the practical and what one needs to do to take the next step. So it sounds like you have people on your staff and team that really show up to say, okay, well, I'm going to handhold you through this to take you step by step, these practical ways to get healing, these practical ways to get support, to get off the street. Whereas if you have a lot of trauma, you're probably not even thinking about those things. And even trauma-wise, the cerebral cortex goes offline. There's a whole physiology to
there
it
really is.
That it isn't just, oh, this person isn't taking responsibility for their lives. This person isn't, they can do it if they want to. No, when you're in that state of trauma over and over, you really don't have the conscious functioning to be able to take these steps. So it's wonderful that you have staff that can.
And our staff are really focused on crisis stabilization first and foremost.
Great.
You know, can we get these kids safe? And then our second goal is, can we get them connected? So one of the things we track is how many positive connections that youth has, whether it's staff in other agencies that they're working with, whether it's staff in schools. It could be a youth pastor, it could be a mentor, or a healthy family member that they might have associations with. So we work really hard to build their personal safety net. And then we start to develop resilience skills in these kids. And our staff go through a lot of training to foster their resilience and their ability to move past their current situation in a healthy way. So financial contributions and grants, that's really how we afford to have a high caliber of employees who do that counseling and that relationship fostering. And then we need stuff all the time, from, you know, nutritious snacks, and we try to avoid giving kids empty calories, but sometimes we've had kids who survive on a spoonful of peanut butter a day. And so healthy snacks is one of the things we need most often. And when kids are hungry, they will often resort to more desperation. And so if we can make sure that their bellies are full and they're at least getting their basic needs met, then they can make higher cognitive decision making.
Wonderful.
And so hygiene supplies, blankets, mittens and scarves in the winter, those kinds of, you know, socks even, and underwear. But feminine hygiene products is something that is a huge need for us, because most agencies will try to limit, you know, they'll give a girl like 5 tampons.
Wow.
And that for some people is a day.
Exactly.
Not everybody has the same needs.
Right.
And to feel like you can't even deal with something that you have no control over because you don't have the products, it just kind of makes everything else. Like, we had a girl come in off the streets last year and was staying with us in our overnight shelter, and before she could even talk about anything, she just wanted to use the bathroom and clean up, and had gone a week without any care, without any care products, and that just should not be a situation that we're seeing.
And so can people just, if they have donations, can they drop them off at your foundation? What would be the best way to do that?
The best thing is they can either drop them off at our center here in Medford, or they can reach out to us over social media, call us, and sometimes we can arrange a pickup.
Great.
Yeah.
So we are delighted to partner with Maslow because of just your work and how much compassion you bring to the community. And it's just such an important, I feel like if everyone were just to do a little bit, even if it's just showing up at one of our 2 events and making a small donation, then I feel it like really creates that web of belonging that can really hold and carry our most vulnerable populations, and just really let people know that there are people who care about them.
Absolutely.
And we're on their side, and that we want the best for these homeless children.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I mean, every little bit helps. I mean, we can't do what we do without the support from our community. And I know people who have said, I don't have money to give. That's okay. If you can spare a tampon, a granola bar, a bottle of shampoo you bought that you decided you didn't like, we can make use of
extra clothes too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If your child is growing up and outgrowing their backpack or their shoes, we can put those to good use. So I think everyone can think of some way that they can support.
Exactly. So the next time you think of going to the Salvation Army or dropping off your stuff there, then also consider the Maslow Project, because they'll put direct use, and it'll go straight to the children in need.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for the work that you're doing to bring awareness to such a vulnerable population.
Yeah.
And I have often felt that the issues around sexual exploitation and trafficking are not comfortable for people to want to talk about.
Absolutely
and
not.
It is very literal when you say shine a light, that you are creating a spotlight on this issue that makes people uncomfortable. But it's very real. We see it happening every day. And so I appreciate that you're bringing this to the forefront.
Yeah, and thank you for all your work you're doing to put an end to the exploitation and to
That is
protect
our
these
goal.
children.
That is our goal.
Same
Yeah.
here. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.